My intention for this call, this pod, it's my first pod. So my intention for the pod is to be okay exploring health as a state of being, not necessarily something that is positive or negative, but a way we want to evolve in different ways.
Hey, it's Bobby. Welcome to Student of Intention, where we help you enjoy the pursuit of purpose. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.
Hello, welcome to Student of Intention. I'm your host, Bobby Dysart. This is a place where we enjoy the pursuit of purpose. Really excited about today's show for several reasons. It's the third episode of season 2. As I think I stated in the first episode of season 2, we are shifting a bit in the show. We're exploring the 5 buckets framework through the minds of the Student of Intention community. The 5 buckets, as you may or may not know, is a practice that I adopted in 2020 and eventually wrote a book about that I'll release soon. It served as the catalyst for my journey of living with intention, as well as this podcast, as well as the newsletter, and as well as the community itself. So far, out of the 5 buckets, we've covered relationships with community member Chelsea Bosley. We've covered creativity with Monica Snyder. And then now we're going to talk about the health bucket with a really good, somewhat newish friend in my life, Ryan Kearney. Ryan, welcome to Student of Intention.
Thanks for the welcome, Bobby.
And I loved your intention that you said at the top of the show. I think I'm still starting to realize that and figure out that it's not necessarily a positive or a negative, right? We'll talk about what it is, right? We'll talk about more in detail. I want to first introduce Ryan. I mentioned you were, more and more, I think we're really, really close, but our relationship is still very much in its infancy. Ryan and I met at the retreat that I just mentioned, the retreat that sort of spurred the idea for the book, that spurred the idea for the newsletter and this podcast, et cetera, et cetera. And Ryan, I dare say you were like the pivotal relationship out of many pivotal relationships that started that weekend. Ryan was one of the leaders. And in particular, what I loved about Ryan was he was just this person that was always on, always in service with regards to the food that we ate. He was the chef. I believe I called you Chef Ryan for a long time. I still kind of call you Chef Ryan. I have a few Ryans in my life, and
I like it.
When I'm talking about Ryan, which I talk about you a decent amount, Tracy's always like, "Well, which Ryan?" I'm like, Chef Ryan, and she knows who I'm talking about. So yeah, during that retreat, you wowed me in so many ways. Not just your the cooking that you did for everyone, which feeding 20 men is just no small feat. So bravo and thank you again for doing that. But just your presence as well. You were consistently in service, I think is the best way to put it. You had this presence about you where I felt very welcome to sort of speak about my experience, to ask you about your past and how you were showing up to the retreat. And man, we had conversations over dishes, over tea, outside. I think I shared a couple of my poems. Like we went really deep, really fast. And yeah, man, it's just been a great ride that started there. And so thank you again for what you did at that retreat and how our relationship has grown this far.
Beautiful to hear that. Thank you. I agree.
You got it. So let's start with that retreat, man. You got me into so much cool stuff. And I think the reason you did it was you made it fun. You made health fun. You made tea cool. You made eating healthy and cooking food. At least for me, these are the feelings and emotions that you evoked from me. I was just and I had never really had that. I'd always sort of, being a college athlete, I'd had focus on my health before. I'd obviously worked out. I had, watched my diet, but I think I'd probably, if I had to name it, I would always more consider it sort of a burden, sort of like a task, something to like be done or maintain.
Yeah.
But when I was hanging out with you in the kitchen and when we were, making tea late nights and stuff like that, like I was like, dude, this is fun. This dude makes it cool. Was I off base or where do you think those feelings came from? Is that something that you think is intentional with how you approach health?
I would say it was intentionally programmed in me by my family. My house growing up was the place where everyone came to eat. My cousin, she had a long day at work. She'd just show up at my house out the blue and, food was there. Friends came through. My mom, could feed a whole basketball team at the drop of a hat. Is just the way it was. So I think it intentionally was taught to me that food and serving people and making them feel welcomed while you are doing so is just a great way to live life. And I definitely have my mom to thank for that.
So it goes way back. It goes way
back.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to get back. I want to get into your past a little bit more because you just have such a fascinating story. I think when we talked, like I was worried we're not going to be able to get through everything because you just have such big pieces of your life and particularly your experiments with health. Not only from what you just talked about growing up, but your life as a basketball player and as an athlete, and then your life, in Bali and kind of becoming a yogi and training and meditation. So we'll talk more about that. Let's zip back into that retreat though. And let's talk about some of the elements of health in that retreat. Like you brought cooking, you brought tea, you brought meditation. I guess how did you go in there sort of like defining health and wanting to share how you define health with the 20 of us guys?
So definitely the food was my commitment, the one thing that I was owning to make an impact at the retreat. I shared meditation, I shared some tea ceremony, I shared other things, but I knew everyone needed to be fed. And I know, like you said, 20 guys hangry or 20 hungry guys, probably not a great idea. I mean, and then on top of it, I know trying to share healthy food with everyone, not everyone wants to eat healthy food. Some people just want to eat stuff that tastes good. And I get that. So I try to marry the two together. And, really the food that we ate was a menu that my wife, Jana, helped me design. So I cooked a lot from 25 until about 33 years old, 32 years old, cooked a lot. But then I kind of forgot how to cook for a few years because Jana just started throwing down the kitchen and really bringing the heat, and getting to see her do that is what gave me the ability to cook healthy food and make it taste good. Because prior to that, I was just in bachelor mode, eating to get by. I mean, I'd cook 10 sweet potatoes at the beginning of the week, and I would just leave them in my bag because I was told they're resilient and they'll stay good. And they're in my gym bag. So after I was done working out in the morning, I'd grab a sweet potato, a few hard-boiled eggs, an avocado, maybe some tomatoes, and I was just eating that in the morning after my workout. So for the retreat, bringing the food together in a way that everyone was nourished and everyone had options. So if they didn't like something specific, they could pivot in another direction.
And the marrying of it tasting good, right? Like that really shined through. Again, I think that sort of added that intentional behavior around trying to make sure that it tasted good and it was healthy, I think was part of the source for those feelings of like, oh, this is cool, right? This is fun. Like this is lit, to use your word. I'm a lot.
I mean, cooking the soup, for example, soup was a big part of the retreat. It was, we wanted grounding foods for people to feel, like they were at home. So, I mean, cook the soup for maybe 5 hours.
Right.
And while I was cooking that soup, I was tasting it. I was dancing. I was singing. Tons of good vibes were going into it. And yeah, that's not something I even get to do all the time at home. Like it takes a retreat space where there, ceremony space to have that type of time and lack of distractions and things like that to really cook that way. And, a lot of planning too. So we had some dietary restrictions on the retreat that I was juggling too, that sometimes people will think that makes it more difficult. While it can create more work, for me, it made things easier because I knew it helped me have more options available. So yeah, that's another thing I became used to. Every time we have someone over for dinner, Jana's asking, do you have any restrictions or any foods you're avoiding or anything you'd like to have? So being able to take something that is vegetarian and make it vegan, or, find things that are going to give people enough protein, even if they're vegan, things like that are things I'm grateful to understand and be able to work with.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you worked some magic, man. And there was definitely restrictions. We were predominantly, I think, eating vegan. Almost everything I think was organic. You had to make it big enough to feed, 20 guys. You had to be convenient enough to sort of squeeze it in where it could. So, bravo. Well done. What about now again, I think health, like you touch so many, you're sort of well-rounded. And again, you evoked that in me of like this idea of balance around health, that health isn't just diet. It's not just exercise. There's also a spiritual, meditative component to it as well. In the book, I define health as sort of, taking care of our vessel for our journey of living with intention. How do you define health?
So I like, say your definition one more time. I'm curious about it. I have mine. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's taking care of the vessel for our journey.
Okay.
Right.
It's a process. Health is a process for your definition.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair.
All right. Yeah. So we exchanged some notes and I hadn't defined health before. And I really like when people ask me to define words. And I write my definition and then I go and look at Webster or Google and see what their definition is. And that's always interesting to me. No. So that's a side note. So my definition of health is our current state of being. It is someone I like to ask people, how's your health? Or I've been asked, how's your health? So I look at it as an open-ended question, not like, are you healthy? Yes or no.
Right.
I really think there needs to be a very descriptive or creative answer to really understand how someone's health is, or if I were to describe how I feel my health is. And found it really interesting that whenever I looked up the definition to health after I wrote mine, and they said that it is the state of being not ill, or without sickness.
Yeah, absence of sickness, huh?
Absence of sickness, things like that. So I was like, interesting that it's so binary in that way. The way that the word is defined in the dictionary and whatnot. So yeah, yours, I like, it's a process. I definitely align with that. For me, it's the current state of being. You can ask someone, how was your health in the past? Okay, I get that. But yeah, for me, it's just the description of how you are. Because like you said, it embraces the body, the mind, the spirit, all those things.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you are a wordsmith, for lack of a better word. Like I know how deliberate you are with words, and the power of words. And it's actually something you sort of invoked in me, in defining it, right? We sort of narrow it. No matter how well defined it is, no matter what words we attach to it, the second we do narrow that scope to some extent. Health can be so big. So be that as it may, for me, right? Like I do bring it down to practices, right? And what those practices are. I think that the other part where we differ, and maybe where I differ from the definition that you shared from Webster's or from whatever, dictionary. I do think it doesn't necessarily, like, I don't like that it's the absence of sickness. I think it's definitely, I look at it more of like an optimistic view, like a positive thing of like what you're bringing to your health. I actually wrote an article in the newsletter called Gift or Burden. And in any given moment, we can be gifting our health. We can be gifting our bodies, our vessels, good things. Or we can burdening it, right? Like, and that I do sort of see as binary, right? It's like I can constantly flood myself with good stuff, or I can flood it with bad stuff, or I can take bad stuff away, take good stuff away, et cetera, right? There's a sort of binary action in that regard. And you, again, I think you just do so many good things. So what are some of the things that you are jamming on now with regards to your health?
So 2020 for me was very much about meditation, yoga, and building a home. So like financial health and security, and focusing on those things. Kind of, I let the working outside of things go. And now 2021, I've come back around to really focus on my physical vessel. And I've been working out a lot more and focusing on being well-rounded and balanced. I myself definitely, I kind of released the idea of fitness or, lifting weights and stuff like that for a couple years. And that was because I was surfing and living in Bali, somewhere tropical, just surf and do yoga. And that worked for me. But once I got back here in the States, set up home in Phoenix, Arizona, I had to find what healthy or being healthy or feeling good looked like here for me. So what I come to find is it was really necessary for me to lift weights and build up my strength and put on some weight, because for whatever reason, the pendulum swung one way and I went way, way down the meditation and fasting and, yoga rabbit holes, and a bunch of different healings occurred there. And then I noticed some things with my physical vessel feeling like they could improve. So it swung back in the other direction to working out, Olympic weightlifting, hiking, going on runs. And now I'm finding a balance between all of it and kind of really feel like I'm peaking as far as my health goes right now.
I sense that. And also sense like this pendulum swinging could continue, because you definitely have a interesting history. Let's talk about that history a bit. So you played college basketball at Point Park. Is that right? Is that in PA?
Yeah, Point Park University. Yeah.
Oh, man, there's I know there's a lot of stories there because I remember from the retreat. But yeah, you're a basketball player, sort of a jock, right? Sort of a stereotypical athlete in a lot of ways. Like I think basketball players are arguably the best athletes on the planet. So that sort of evokes for me the more like fitness mindset of health, the more like measured mindset of health, right? The more like performative mindset of health, or parts of health, I should say. And then you just said, like, tell us more about, I guess, those rabbit holes that you went down. And I assume those maybe started in Bali and you moving there. But give us a little recap and a little history of maybe starting at Point Park, and then what those rabbit holes looked like.
Yeah, so graduated Point Park University, moved to Los Angeles, was trying to figure out what was going to go on with life. And then I went to work a basketball camp with a good friend of mine in Dallas, Texas. From there, he and I started a basketball skills training business. And quickly, I found that I wanted to bring in a fitness element, and I really wanted to help people with sports performance training as a component of that. So I started to study kinesiology and, different styles of working out and plyometric training and stuff like that. And I put that in as an aspect of the business. And, that was the start of my professional career. Ran a sports camps business for a few years, and then kind of found yoga while I was doing that because I hurt my ankle and I got really upset that I couldn't dunk a basketball anymore. And I wanted to be able to do that again. But I was training and I was stronger than I ever was and all this good stuff, but I just didn't have the bounce anymore. So someone told me, hey, try yoga.
Can you dunk a basketball now?
I don't think so, but I haven't tried in a while. I think I will be able to by the end of the year because I just started jumping again. It's just getting in the habit of jumping. Goal set now.
Boom.
Dunk by the end of the year.
All right.
There it is.
So you couldn't dunk. You're not feeling your normal agile self, and so you go to yoga for physical therapist told me, hey, try yoga. It'll really help you integrate all the different ways you've been strengthening yourself and be able to apply it on the court. I'm like, all right, cool. So set the goal to go 30 days in a row. And from there, so many beautiful benefits started to reveal themselves. Most notably was my ability to get a good night's sleep. Prior to that, I had always been, lie down at 9 or 10 at night, and I could still be sitting there wide awake at 1:30, 2 in the morning, which was just painstaking for me. It was I never liked the idea of going to bed just because it took forever to fall asleep. But in yoga, they gave me a system of lying down and breathing that allowed me to calm myself and clear my mind and take rest. So I was hooked, from that alone. Second favorite benefit, or one I'm most grateful. Second one I was very grateful for is being able to read and comprehend better for more extended periods of time. Growing up, I always got good grades, but reading, after 5-10 minutes, I'd always get really sleepy. And just this concept of focusing on the breath while I was reading helped me really comprehend better and stick with it for longer periods of time and accomplish more, which really helped me grow my sports performance business at the time. So that was beautiful. And then health took another turn for me
when I decided that I wanted to launch these sports camps in China. Mm. So my roommate at the time, he spoke Mandarin, Spanish, English, and he was learning Arabic. So he wanted to do a lot of international business, and he had an English teaching school in China. He was about to close it. I said, hey, let's take this basketball over there before you do that. He's like, all right, cool. It'll be fun. So then when I went to China, I started to see how they ate over there. And it was really hard for me to find all my vegan food that I wanted and things that were organic. And I had to start to get creative. So that was just really challenging and helped me get discipline about the practices that I had adopted when I first started yoga. I wasn't able to go find a yoga class in English. So I had to start remembering all the yoga I was taught and going through the classes by myself. So that was probably like a big transition from going from a beginner yoga student to intermediate. Was I now needed to take what I've learned and implement it into my life without someone holding my hand. Mm.
Wow. And did your dietary changes, did those sort of link up with your interest in yoga?
Yeah. So great question. So as soon as I started doing yoga, I noticed I was going to yoga in the morning and it didn't feel good. I would always eat late at night, probably why I couldn't sleep. But I was constantly eating because I was always told you're too skinny, you need to eat more, all this stuff. My Italian grandma, you need some more lasagna, put some more cheese on that. Let's get you some more pasta. But for whatever reason, I never put on any weight. So when I started doing yoga, I quit eating late at night because I wanted to feel good in the yoga class, and twisting in the morning and doing these crazy postures with a belly full of food didn't feel good. So started eating less first at night and started eating bigger breakfast, bigger lunch. Felt great. Then I started to eat more vegetables slowly until the meat became the side portion of my meal. And then for the sake of efficiency and cost, the meat just went out the door because I was like, I don't even need it. And I became vegan, and I stuck to vegan or vegetarian diet for the better part of a decade. And that spurred, I'd say, 6 months into my yoga journey. So six months into practicing yoga, I turned to vegetarianism, veganism, and rode that out for, I think almost a decade.
Oh man. Yeah. And that blew my mind because I know you're not a vegan now. In fact, you experiment a lot with different kinds of meats and different parts of your diet. But what I really love about that story, it's something I keep coming back to. And when I'm trying to sort of verbalize for other folks that are maybe looking to live more intentionally, looking to enjoy the pursuit of purpose a little bit more, which is, I think it's twofold. So much comes from action. So much comes from just trying something and committing to it. And then the second thing is, it doesn't necessarily have to be like this massive opportunity or this massive like reason to go do something. Here you are, you started yoga sort of on a whim. Like, I want to fix this ankle so I can so I can dunk a basketball, right? You weren't trying to, find yourself. You weren't trying to discover, the secrets of the world or yourself. You may have stumbled on those things, but at first it was like, I just want to heal my ankle. And so you put in the work, you stuck to it for 30 days and your eyes just widened. Like you were, the world sort of revealed itself, or at least parts of the world, right? Yeah. That led to all kinds of other discoveries. You discovered, ways to help yourself sleep better, which I'm sure was nagging, right? You discovered, you discovered meditation and ways to consume information in a better, more pleasant way with regards to your reading. You brought all of this to your business, and ultimately, moved your business internationally, adopted practices that helped you succeed in that business. I'm sure. It introduced this new way of living and dieting for again 10 years. And I think, more people need to do that stuff, right? We sort of over-index on like these big, we just think too much about these things as opposed to, just go to that yoga class.
Yeah. Totally.
I assume you still do that, right? Like I think I get the sense that you still take those actions. You still sort of follow these rabbit holes.
Oh yeah. And, we can fast forward a little bit to, you brought up, me living in Bali, and you threw out that, you kind of assumed that I started, becoming a yogi there. And I definitely, progressed a lot there. But after Dallas, I moved to Santa Monica. Living there, I had, every vegan option I can ever imagine. And, that was really convenient for my lifestyle. And then I left Santa Monica, ended up moving to Maui and then Bali. But I really want to get to this point where I actually went on the carnivore diet for a little bit.
Yes.
So this, we're fast forwarding from, 10 years now after, at the end of my vegan vegetarian journey. My wife and I were dating at the time. We were 3 years into our relationship, and she went to the doctor over in Bali, and they said, "Hey, you have a parasite infection. You're deficient in vitamin B and all this stuff." And she wasn't feeling good. So they said, "You can take this vitamin B supplement and you might feel better in like a month or two, or you can start eating red meat and you'll probably feel better in, maybe a week, maybe a few days." And, we just kind of listened to that. We didn't tell them no or yes. We took the vitamin B supplements and weren't sure what we were going to do. And then we were sitting down at a restaurant one day, and she looked at the menu, and it was this place called Bali Buddha. If you ever go to Bali, visit Bali Buddha. It's the kind of place where they're sourcing everything from the farmer. You order something on the menu. They say, "Oh, not today. Farmer didn't have it. Come back tomorrow, maybe." So it's all fresh. And she says to the waiter, what's beef rasher? And he explains that it's like a beef bacon. And she looks at me, and I said, "Babe, if you eat meat, I'm not going to be the vegan guy who dumped his girl because she decided to eat beef rasher. I love you. Do what you got to do." So the beef rasher come out and smelled good. And I said, hey, she's looking at it. I said, "Hey, I'll eat some with you." We ate it. Our eyes lit up. I found out that, I had this parasite infection too. And the meat was helping us heal. Like, we were really depleted from die-off symptoms of this parasite from these really, really strong herbs we were taking. So we started to eat the red meat. We were told that the vitamin B in it was really going to help us become healthier. So that's how that started. Went 40 days with no coffee, started eating meat, and no sugar. So no sugar was really tough for coming from the vegan world because everything had a little bit of sugar in it to round out the flavor. So after, it was 28 days we were on that diet. So no sugar, no coffee, and we started eating meat. We small portions, started off with 4 ounces. After 28 days of that, I was like, this feels great. And I've heard of this thing called the carnivore diet. I'm going to try it. So Jan and I, we ate only animal products for 40 days. And I had been a farter my whole life leading up to that point. And like 15 days into the carnivore diet, no more stinky farts. It was crazy. Never expected this. Never expected that I would be on the carnivore diet. I mean, 6 months prior, I was vegetarian or vegan
for 10 years.
And yeah. So like, I'm open to change. I'm open to experiment. I just need to feel like it's coming from the right place. And we were healing, and yeah, it felt right. So, I mean, I was really grateful for a lot of people that were around me in my life at the time to keep me from the idea of the ism, veganism or vegetarianism. I feel like that was a turning point where I really identified that I don't really like any of the isms, whether it's like a religion, a way of eating,
like sort of the all or nothing, the label, like you are this.
Yeah.
Is that what you're? Yeah.
So, like the other isms I think of, not to bash anything, like a lot of times it's a religion, it's a politics, or it's a diet, veganism. There's what other things they have? They have, pescatarian diets.
Well, and there's two sides to it, right? There's the folks that intentionally subscribe to those isms, and then there's the people sort of the outside looking in that are like uncomfortable with you not being in a box. I remember, when Tracy and I first started experimenting with vegan food, like I just wasn't silly enough to say like, I'm never going to eat an In-N-Out cheeseburger. And no, like, I just know I'm going to eat one again. So I'm not going to go around shouting from the rooftops that I'm a vegan, but am I really interested in this diet? Was I really nerding out on like, cauliflower curries and just weird tastes that I'd never eaten in, 30 years of living. But I remember the first time I ordered a buffalo cauliflower sandwich in front of my parents, and like, they just looked at me with like crazy disdain, like, you're a vegan now? I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, I can't just order a sandwich.
I totally get that.
That's the world we live in, man. And again, like, to your credit, like, that was another thing I picked up from you, be it intentional or not, was like this. I like how you look at these things as it's not all or nothing. It's this kind of ongoing exploration of self. It's really what it is. So I keep talking about things that I learned, right? Like, again, from what you were talking about, I think the benefit of taking action, sticking to things, exploring different things, like how that sort of leads us into again, self-exploration, right? Like, you start learning how you adapt to these different practices and how it makes you feel, how it affects your production in life. What are your big takeaways? You mentioned you're sort of, you're coming into like a balance of sorts. You've done a lot. You've done 10 years of being vegan. You've been an athlete in college. You've been a dedicated yogi. You've been dedicated to meditation. Now you've been a carnivore for 40 days. What are your sort of takeaways from all this experimentation?
Main takeaway for me is if you want to change something, or if you want to improve, I think trying something new is usually a good idea, or at least being open to trying something new. Also, if you've found something in your past that's helped you with this before and you've kind of let that go, it's okay to bring that practice back to help. But
In
Go ahead.
in the improvement word, that's kind of interesting, right? Coming from a person who is just like, let's just stay on the diet, right? Like
Yeah.
total polar opposites: carnivore diet, vegan diet. And if we talk about one of those diets to the wrong group of people, like they're gonna say that you're not improving anything, right? Like you're hurting yourself, right? Yeah. So, what I guess what do you say about that? Like, because I don't think like improving such a tough word to say, because it's like, well, did you improve yourself with the meat diet? Sure. Mm-hmm. Right? Did you improve yourself with the vegan diet? Sure. But isn't that a contradiction?
Yeah. So you brought up the idea of like from the outside looking in. And for me, one thing I always remind myself of is that I don't know what their goal is or what the outcome they want is. So there's no way for me to really judge their process or the actions they're taking if I don't know why they're doing it. If someone's fasting and I assume that, they're doing it for health reasons, that could not easily not be the case. I mean, I believe in fasting as a practice that could be helping someone, but I believe it's most helpful for spiritual reasons, spiritual health. So yeah, if I don't know someone's goal, I don't know if it's necessarily, I can't judge it. So that's a big one for me. And then also for myself, understanding that if I'm going to do something, getting clear with my intention for why I'm doing it. So, okay, for example, whenever I was choosing to fast and eat a vegan and vegetarian diet, it was for the purpose of cleansing and purifying myself. I felt like I've used my body through college as an athlete, eating lots of garbage, drinking lots of alcohol, and doing things where I really think my body was really thankful to get a rest from all the harsh chemicals and hormones and antibiotics and things that were probably put in the animals that I was eating whenever I was growing up. So now whenever I eat meat, I went through this time of cleansing and kind of healing my vessel. And now when I come back to eating meat, I'm only eating organic, grass-fed, or wild game, and things that are, come from a sustainable supply chain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel you on that that episode of cleansing, those years of cleansing and the need for it. I definitely went through my version of that at the end of last year and into the beginning of this year. It's how I started to lose a lot of weight. I was like, man, I'm really cleansing myself. And it wasn't, it's interesting. It wasn't initially, again, it wasn't really with intention of doing so. It was just like I sort of discovered my need for it, and that need sort of grew. And so I had to keep going down that rabbit hole myself. And now I think like you, I'm starting to figure out like, okay, now I want to add some more stuff to my diet. I want to build some stuff onto my diet. I want to build muscle a little bit.
I got one more big takeaway, and this is something that's really helped me, is what the strategy that I use to heal something is going to be different than the strategy I use to live and thrive. So, if I went on the carnivore diet, it was to heal. It was for purpose. So I think it is, for me, in my experience, it was a great way of eating to get healthier and to heal myself. But it wasn't something I think that would have served me long term or allowed me to thrive if I tried to make that my new lifestyle practice.
Great distinction.
Yeah.
So basically,
I think
healing. Well, clarify. So you're talking about healing versus sort of long-term maintenance and.
Yeah, it took me a while to notice this, because what would happen is I would take action, and maybe I was doing something to just be more comfortable in yoga, like not eating food late at night and not eating meat at night, stuff like that. And then I was experiencing these other benefits of feeling good. So, making these changes, and I'm just enjoying the positive benefits I'm receiving. I'm healing. So once I've achieved this, once I've kind of harvested the fruits of that technique or that practice, I would just keep going with it. And there really wasn't any more benefit there for me. And I never realized this until I follow a guy named Paul Chek, and he laid that out one day, and I reflected on it. He laid out what you do to heal isn't necessarily what's going to be best for you to thrive and continue to live your life. Once you've got those fruits of the healing, you need to reevaluate what's going to serve you moving forward. So for me, that has continually helped me to evolve and reevaluate what I'm doing, why, and is it going to be beneficial for me to achieve what I want to achieve next.
What do those evaluations look like? Like, what triggers them? What does the reflection and then the sort of planning process look like for you?
So for me, most recently, it was starting to lift weights again. And when I did that, I started to notice that I needed more calories. I needed more food. And for about 5 years, I quit using any supplementation. I wouldn't take any vitamins or, plant-based protein powders or any protein powder. So just no supplement. If I wanted more nutrients, I'd look up what food had it, and I'd go to the grocery store and I'd eat more of that. So then I identified that eating the amount of plants that I had to eat to do that was really, really hard on my digestive system. It would make me really sluggish to eat that amount of food, and I was tired from digesting all this stuff. So I had to look at some other options, and I found a company that offered organic superfoods, and I had been pitched it a ton of times, and I never moved forward because I was like, I don't do supplements. That was just my immediate response. I don't do supplements. And then for, the sake of reaching my goals, I was like, all right, well, maybe I should try them for, healing and putting on weight and recovery from working out. So I did that. It's treated me well, and I've still been doing that ever since. And those are the supplements. It's called Purium. You and I did a 30-day transformation together, and I started doing that in July, and I still take their products every day to this day. So it's something that I kind of evaluated wasn't serving me anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that first transformation was just like, it was like rocket fuel to me. Something I was already hitting my strides with my health to go through that. And I was really dedicated to the diet, to the plan, like to the T. That was a great experience. And yeah, like I think I first started doing it just because I was like, man, anything by Ryan, like, has been awesome, has been treating me well. So I'm stoked on it. So that's sort of like, I think what was the catalyst for me doing it. And then as I was doing it, I guess for me, I realized what you realized through a little bit more of like a seemingly technical, strategic, venture in making sure you can hit your goals. Me, I just kind of simply saw it as like, wow, this is just gifts I'm just giving myself every day. I look at the green juice and the amino acids literally as that. It's like, even if I have a quote unquote like off day, if I just crush some cheesecake or something, right? Or what have you, I know that first morning, right? First thing in the morning, I just gulp down a bunch of superfoods. I take my amino acids, right? I take the sort of the gut tablets too. I can't remember the name right now, but Biomedic, baby. I love the Biomedic. Yeah. So I think that also started to evoke, and it's still something I carry with me today. This idea of being able to consistently give myself gifts, give my vessel gifts. And it's a helpful perspective that I think I'll continue on. All right.
Yeah.
I know we've got to rush because you kept mentioning your partner in crime, Jana, which, by the way, I don't think we talked about, but you got married. Was it in January?
Got married December 2020.
December 2020. So congratulations officially on air. Like you two, from a health perspective, are just a 1-2 punch that's unlike anyone else I know. So I love it. I think and she's got, the reason we got to hurry is she's got a client coming in, right?
So she accommodated a client who wanted to move the appointment a little earlier, work around some work stuff, and she's in service. So she said, "Yeah, we got you. Show up a half hour early, and we'll get you taken care of." So Jana's a yoga teacher and massage therapist. So her massage therapy practice has been really successful, and because we want to help more people and be able to teach more yoga, that was part of why we also explored the superfood supplements. So we are distributors for those superfoods because we want to be able to teach more yoga for free and have people be able to support us in other ways by, buying supplements and things like that, rather than just, paying for a yoga class and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, this is my last question, and I think you started to answer it. I just know you showed up in that retreat in service. You're consistently showing up to that group, the Student of Intention community, myself in service. I think you and Jana both, you sort of do these health practices, not only for yourself, but in service of others. What else do you want to do? I guess another question is, like, what do you want to get some attention around? Is it doing more in service of others? What does the future hold, particularly with your health?
Yeah. So particularly with my health, the future holds dunking a basketball, just because we talked about in this episode, and that'll be a fun journey. But my motivation to improve my health is to be able to show up more for others. So I noticed that when I'm working out in the morning and doing things that actually get me stronger, thankfully, what that looks like is, for me, putting on more muscle right now and lifting heavier weights, I actually have more energy and I'm more focused, more driven. So I went through a period of time where sacrifice was my medicine. And, I wasn't working out because I told myself, I've done enough of that. I need to focus on these other buckets of my life. And now I'm noticing that putting more into the health bucket actually helps me fill the other buckets up more and get more out of every other bucket. So it's kind of like my lead gene right now. And as far as service goes, I wanted to teach yoga. I started a yoga retreat business in 2020, had one retreat, and then the pandemic happened. And I was like, all right, well, I could do this, but it seems like not the right time for me to try to get people to fly all over the world and meet up when everyone's told to stay at home. So I pivoted and focused on some e-commerce projects and selling some stuff on Amazon, things like that, to give us the resources to live the life we want. So now moving forward, I want to use the resources to, build our business around yoga, wellness. And the number one way that I've been monetizing that recently is through selling the Purium supplements.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm definitely going to go to, when we get the yoga retreat spun up again. You've got one excited explorer, one excited customer. So I'll be there with you, brother, one way or another, either as a partner or a customer or both.
Love it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. We are right on time as I recall. So tell Jana, thank you for letting you get this done before a client rolls in, and thank you to you, man. This is really great.
Yeah, thank you. How about you? Well, I'm curious. I got a couple. What's it look like for you moving forward with the health bucket?
I'm gonna. So lately, it's a good question, because I think we just talked about. I went down this road of like basically just cleansing my health. Like I stripped a lot of stuff away. Right, I stopped drinking alcohol, which I've always been a guy that drinks a lot of alcohol. I got really.
How long ago was that?
That was October.
Okay.
October. And, and yeah, I mean, I lost 30 pounds, right? Like when I was at my lowest weight, I was 30 pounds down from basically what I've been my whole adult life. And coming out of that, my first intuition, when I remember when the scale said 166 down from a guy who usually walks around at 196, I do remember I was just like, whoa, I don't like this. I don't like how skinny I am. I still feel good, and I'm proud. Like I'm proud that I've done this and I've dedicated this, but something feels off. Like I've hit the lowest I need to hit. But I don't, and it was like, I was kind of caught in between. Like, I don't want to let go of like the momentum that I've gained in this way, but I also know that something different lies ahead, something different. Yeah. I want to figure out what that is. I just didn't know what it was. I'd argue I probably still don't. Like I put on 10 more pounds. Like I weigh 175 now. I eat a little bit more loosely. I still don't really drink. I'll have a glass of wine maybe. I went to a wedding a couple months ago. Yeah, I sort of am happy with where I'm at. I work out daily. I'm taking my supplements. For the most part, I'd say eat like 75% vegan. And when I do eat meat, I look at it like as an indulgent experience. I'm really into organic grass-fed bison, in particular. But most recently, my good friend Chris, he put this sort of experiment on my radar that I may indulge in. I think probably starting in July, which is it's twofold. One, like I'm now at this healthy point too, where I feel comfortable picking up weights again. Yeah. I also went through a weird place where like for years, I just didn't like going to the gym because I couldn't lift like I did when I was a wrestler. Like I was used to going in there with a lot of confidence, a lot of strength, and I just didn't have any of those things. Now I sort of have that. I've sort of rebuilt it myself in that regard through working out in my garage, through doing like functional exercises, right? But non like heavy weight training. And so now I'm kind of excited, and everything's just been shut down. So I think what's next ahead of me is from a diet perspective, pushing myself. Like if I just eat healthy stuff, like how much can I eat? Because I've definitely spun up my metabolism. So I'm excited to eat a lot more, and figure out what that happens what happens with combined with getting back into a gym. There's a gym across the street from my house that I'm excited to go join. I'm not going to join it right now because I've got 3 or 4 trips planned, including AZ. So I don't want to ruin my flow right now, but I think in July, I'm going to try maybe like 45, 60 days, heavy eating, heavy lifting, and just, I don't really even have a goal or expectations. I just kind of want to see what happens. Kind of experiment.
Nice. Nice.
And not looking past that. That's kind of it from a health perspective.
I love that. Thanks for sharing.
You got it, man. Thanks for asking. It's funny with these pods. I always ask all the questions, and I'm like, I want to catch up with you. I'm happy to share and answer questions. So I just snuck that in. But that's all we got, man. Let's go. I feel nervous. I feel like Jana's going to be banging down the door and saying, "Hey,
no, we're good. We're so good." I got reminders. I got her calendar on my phone. It's popping up. She would be texting me if we're good. And I'm glad that we took a little extra time to hear where you're going. And I'm stoked. I'll see you in the Student of Intention community. I've been loving what you're sharing on the platform that you put together for us, and have great relationships with community members. So just want to say thank you. Thanks for having me, and excited to fill up the buckets this week.
You got it, man.
Hey, it's Bobby. Thanks for listening to today's show. For more, follow Student of Intention at www.studentofintention.com. And remember, don't wait, start small, learn as you go.